can you talk a little bit about the hybridization program and how that fits in, and how do we, as we're starting to become more open to contact with our galactic selves and more open to contact with other races, and that is now becoming our future as we move in to 2024. And how would you categorize the hybridization program now, our perception of it as a whole, and how that fits into our morphogenetic field and our human evolution?
Hybridization program is something that I hope comes more into mainstream understanding of these things, but it's something that is very difficult for the average human to accept, because what we're talking about is the creation of life forms by the union of your genetic information as a human and advanced genetic information. You can say advanced, but it's not necessarily advanced. It's just more activated strands of genetic information that come from these other interdimensional beings. So you're uniting your genetic information with these interdimensional levels of consciousness. And so what is occurring with the organism that's produced, the hybrid that is produced, it becomes a cocktail of DNA. And what that means, what is DNA? DNA is, well, you can call it a blueprint, but it really is a snapshot of the entire historical history and the potential of an organism. And it's interdimensionally, not just in the three-dimensional plane. It's on all dimensional planes. So when this snapshot is created, this data is created, and then creates this form of an organism, it is sustaining and continuing the cyclical reincarnation cycle of this organism, which we call the matrix. You can say the matrix. And the matrix extends out into up to about the 11th dimensional plane. And then beyond that, it begins to enter into other things. But within this 11, 12 dimensional plane of creation, we are being mixed and combined with these other interdimensional beings in order to activate more strands of DNA. The more you combine genetic information, the more you're accessing information and data, and again, becoming one with all these other organisms. So in a way, if you look at it that way, it's like a natural evolution that is occurring. It's the evolutionary mechanism of this organism, which we call the matrix, which we are participating as if we are cells of that matrix of creation. But more so than that, what the human has is the soul essence, which is, of course, the fractal of infinite consciousness that drives that organism into life, that creates that blueprint for creation. Why this is important? Because this is something that we've participated in since the beginning of conception of life on this planet, so we call a planet. And we are just continuing this generation of organisms. It is a very complex topic because there's many other little details that are included in that. We would have to define what a soul is. We would have to define how many of these beings actually have these souls, or what they are, how they function, for example. But I would simplify it by just looking at the genetic information, which allows access to lineages. And Matt, you talk about the Magdalene lineage, for example, which is very pertinent to this topic, because a lot of the women that remember their hybridization memories are descendants of these Magdalene bloodlines. What is that? It's the divine conception that you just conceive without having a partner, and they experience this. But what's more important is the DNA, not the blood, the DNA, the code that's within them that has been brought down through generations. And when you follow these bloodlines, they go down royal bloodlines that were heavily conserved and protected bloodlines, which means that they were breeding within one another in order to preserve the purity of that bloodline. And then it branched out into other of the same kind of families. So what that did was concentrate specific information and activate more of that information that was specific to those lineages. And those lineages are descendants of different races, you can say races, of species. So why that's important is because in those bloodlines is very occult and ancient information about the mastery, ancient teachings, ancient information about how to manage the body. All of that was heavily preserved and hidden for centuries. Now bloodlines that are coming in with this information are the ones that remember it most. And a lot of the beings that are being born right now easily have access to this data and this information. What's interesting about that is the ancestral lineage of these bloodlines go into royal families. They go all the way back to Mesopotamia and then go into the original first races that came into the earth. You have these Anunnaki bloodlines stemming all the way back to Draconian and archonic consciousness as well. And this plays an important role in the perception of the humans that are playing out these roles. The hybridization program, to close up this topic, is the sustainability of this matrix multiverse. We play a role in it in many different dimensional planes, and we do so without our awareness, most of us, unless we wake up with the awareness through healing. And more humans right now are becoming aware that they have had this kind of contact. I mean, in the past 5 years, since I've done documentaries on this topic, and it's been quite published, hundreds of women are talking about their experiences of having these kinds of conceptions without having partners, having miscarriages, or blighted ovum situations where they don't have a fetus but they were pregnant, and things like this, that it is definitely occurring interdimensionally, and it is affecting the physical aspect. And so it's important to understand that, because we then want to question, where does free will play? And free will is really, how can I put this? Free will really is only if you know you have free will, because we make these agreements in other dimensional timelines to participate in the continuation of these races. And we don't remember that until we have an experience. When we have the experience, it begins to open up all kinds of other experiences that you may have had. So our awareness, waking up consciousness in the present time is important, so that you can understand what you've been doing all these centuries in your blood families, in your ancestral lineages.